Alrighty, and we're back. Listen, now we're doing Polearm, the best perk picks. Now, before we get to the video, like I always have to say every single video, the reason all my perks are 300 is because I use cheats, just to show you guys the best perk picks. Whenever you're playing your actual game, you can only reach 300 in a couple of perks. You can't really max out every single perk if you're playing vanilla Bannerlord, okay? Now, I did this for the concept of these videos. Like always, playlist down below for the full, for all of these that I got so far. I have a bunch of these from the older patches that are still relevant. And also, I'm doing each one in a row. Every couple of days, I'm dropping the next one. So after this video, we're going to see the bow. And before this video, I already have two-handed up on my channel. Okay, so go check that out. First link down below in the description for the full playlist. Now, Polearm, what does it do? The more you level up Polearm, your weapon speed and weapon damage goes up, same as one-handed and two-handed. But the choices are a little bit, how can I say, situational. And what do I mean by this? The other ones, like one-handed and two-handed, certain perks were good, certain perks were bad, and some were situational. But Polearm, you really have to kind of choose your lane, right? If you want to go in Polearm, you have to choose two main categories, right? The first thing you have to choose is, are you going cavalry or are you going on foot? Because a lot of these perks are pretty much, do you want a cavalry perk or do you want a, an on foot perk, okay? So you have to pretty much choose. Now you can also, pick some of these, pick some of that, but you're not going to become the strongest type of, polearm user that you can be, and you can't reach your full potential in that way. Now, I prefer cavalry. I think polearms are a lot better on cavalry than on foot. Now, there are two abilities that you can do with polearm. One you can do on on horseback, which is called couch lancing. That pretty much means, like, if you ever seen like those like old school movies where it's like two guys in the arena, they're fully kitted out knights and they both have really long lances. Couch lancing is pretty much putting your polearm in that position and holding it there and then running into your enemy, okay? Now, the next ability is called spear bracing. This is pretty much the same thing as couch lancing, except you're not, you're stationary. You put your spear up, or you put your polearm up, right? Most of the time they are spears, right? That's what they're called in Bannerlord. But you put your polearm up, and whenever the cavalry charges at you, your enemy cavalry charges at you, you can dismount them because the spear brace does a lot of damage and usually takes out the mount itself. Okay? So those are two things you should know about polearm. So, now with that all being said, let's go down to these perk choices. And like I said before, I do prefer cavalry, but I'm going to explain, the other side as well if you prefer to go on foot, okay? First, we have cavalry versus pikeman at level 25. So cavalry is plus 2% damage with polearms while mounted. And then as a captain perk, captain means whenever you are in a big battle and you see like all the different groups and you see how like you can like put some of your companions as like the leader of that group, that's considered the captain of that formation. So if you are the captain of a formation with cavalry troops, your cavalry troops are going to get 2% damage with this perk, okay? And then pikeman is the exact opposite. It is 2% damage with polearms on foot and also 2% damage by infantry troops in your formation, okay? And by the way, the 2% damage doesn't have to be with polearms for either or. They just give you a bonus to any of your infantry troops or a bonus to any of your cavalry troops, depending on what you pick. I obviously picked cavalry because I think it is still stronger. And also one thing I did want to mention from the point before, spear bracing is good, but I'll be honest with you, Bannerlord really is dominated by cavalry. It was dominated a lot more when the game first came out in beta, but even now, even though spear bracing is pretty strong, choosing to go on cavalry is still stronger, okay? So that's why I chose cavalry. Next, we have braced versus Keepa Bay. All right. So braced is plus 25% chance of dismounting enemy cavalry with a heavy hit. Now, this does not mean that you have to be on foot, okay? You can be on Cavalry and still get this 25% chance, okay? It just has to be an enemy cavalry unit. So whenever you hit a heavy hit, that's what's going to happen. And as a captain perk, plus 10% damage by infantry in your formation against cavalry. Now you might be wondering, why did you pick this one if you like cavalry? Because the 25% chance, in my opinion, is well worth even, you know, getting the 10% damage to infantry. You might not have infantry in your formation, but that 25% chance I still think is worth it. Versus Keepa Bay, which is 30% chance of knocking enemies back with thrust attacks made with polearms. And then a governor perk, which again doesn't really matter for the concept of this video because we're talking about your main hero and their perks. I will make videos later on about best governor perks. What does governor mean? Governors are pretty much the guys that you can task to stay in a town and become the governor of said town. Now, this could be your family member, your companions, but it cannot be you, the main character, okay? So pretty much, I chose Brace because obviously it gives you 2 bonuses, because you might still have some infantry in your formation regardless. But, what's it called? I don't use thrust attacks. This is another thing that I should have mentioned in the beginning, but with polearms, you have 2 different types of polearms. You have polearms that thrust. Your thrust attack is kind of like the, what do you call it? The same as kind of like the couch lance attack. It's like the one where you kind of like attack with like, you know, for example, if it's a spear, you attack with like the tip of the spear, right? You're like forward. You're like pressing forward. Like, for example, if you're imagine you putting a plug into a socket, that same animation, but that's how you would attack, right? That's a thrust attack. But I like using a swing polearm. And let me just show you real quick. If we go to our inventory real quick. Might take a while to load because all the cheats enabled. But here are the 2 types that I'm talking about, by the way. We have the Highland Spear. As you can see, this one has thrust damage. As you can see, thrust speed, thrust damage. And this one right here has something called swing damage. You can also use thrust with this one. Don't get it twisted. But you can also swing this one. Why do I prefer the swing over the thrust? You have to be a lot more precise with the thrust. While the thrust does more damage, the swing will make you pretty much hit your target more often because you don't have to be as accurate. That is why I prefer it more. And as you can see, by the way, another thing I wanted to mention, if you want to do the couch lance or the spear brace, it has to say it in the weapon. As you can see, this weapon, you can couch lance and spear brace with this weapon. But with this weapon, you can't do either, okay? So that's pretty much something that you have to also know when it comes to polearm. There's a lot of small things that you have to know when it comes to polearm. But let's get back to it. Where were we? Right over here. So I picked Brace because the 25% chance of dismounting enemy cavalry with a heavy hit I think is very, very good. And also, it's 1 perk versus 2. 10% damage by infantry in your formation against cavalry. Again, you might have some infantry in your formation as well. So, again, not too bad. I picked Braced. Now, we have Clean Thrust versus Swift Swing. All right. So, Clean Thrust is 10% thrust damage with polearms. And as a captain perk, plus 30 polearm skill to infantry in your formation. Versus Swing Speed, which is plus 5% swing speed with polearms and plus 2% swing speed to infantry in your formation. Now, I chose this one because obviously I like the swing polearms. But if you like the thrust damage polearms, then I suggest you pick this as well. Okay, I mean, I suggest you pick Clean Thrust instead of Swift Swing. But I chose Swift Swing because I prefer the swinging, what's it called, polearms. Now, we have Footwork versus Hard Knock. Footwork, plus 2% combat movement speed with polearms, and then as a captain perk, plus 2% movement speed by infantry in your formation. It sounds really good, and I won't blame you if you take it, okay? But we have Hard Knock, plus 25% chance of knocking the enemy down with a heavy hit, and also plus 3 hit points by infantry in your party. It's a party leader perk. What that means is everybody in your party gets it. Now, or everybody, you know, like, that's in your party, that's also infantry, like, whatever's, you know, the description is. But it affects people that's in your party only. Now, I really like getting hit points on troops in your party. I did it for one-handed, I did it for two-handed, and I still think it's very strong. Why? Because literally in Bannerlord, here's how it works. It's not like, there's no, like, bleeding effect in Bannerlord. There's no, like, you get hit and then your HP starts going down slowly. There's nothing like that, okay? So whenever you have just a little bit more hit points, that might be the difference between your troops getting hit twice and dying, or getting hit 3 times and dying. Now, what do I mean by this? Your troop might get hit 2 times, and it might do 100% of his damage. But if your troop has 100, let's say they have 100, just 100 HP base. Someone hits for 50 damage each single time, right? Just for example, your troop dies. Now, if your troop has 103 hit points, all of a sudden, it takes 3 hits, not 2. Doesn't happen every time, but that little chance is a little chance, is what I say. You know what I mean? I always think that, you know, you should always take the HP. It's very good. And also the 25% chance of knocking the enemy down with a heavy hit is another dice roll, because you also get a 25% chance of dismounting enemy cavalry with a heavy hit. So if you hit an enemy cavalry with a heavy hit, you get 2 dice rolls on what happens to them. They get dismounted, and they could also get knocked down as well. So pretty good. But I would not. I always say speed is the name of the game when it comes to, you know what I'm saying, most of these RPG sandbox games. You know, your speed, your movement speed, attack speed, very important. If you choose footwork, I understand, but I do like more beefier units in my party. Okay, and usually I always get the hit points on other different skills as well. So my units become very beefy, and late game, it makes for really, really, really good siege attacks that you can perform, because your infantry can take a lot more arrows, a lot more attacks as they're trying to fight through. So I chose Hard Knock. Next, we have Lancer versus Steed Killer. So this is another option of mounted versus, or cavalry versus being on foot. Okay, so this literally just depends on how you want to play it, right? So Lancer's 20% damage bonus from speed with polearms while mounted, and also as a captain, 30% damage bonus from speed with polearms by troops in your formation. What does that mean? Whenever you're on horseback, and whenever, or even when you're on not on horseback, if you run towards an enemy and hit them while you still have that speed on you, a damage multiplier happens. The faster you are on hit, the more damage you will do. And on top of that, you will get 20% even more damage on top of that bonus. And your troops will get plus 30% bonus damage. Now, what does this mean? If you get a full formation of cavalry, with polearms, and you charge an enemy with this perk, you're doing a lot of damage. Okay? You're doing a lot of damage. And you're probably going to get a lot of one-shots, and so is your army. And that can change the tide of the battle very quickly, because you can knock out a lot of enemies very quickly, and that not only draws the numbers down, but also it lowers the battle morale of your enemies, which in turn makes them fight worse. I'm pretty sure, I don't know what exactly it affects, but I think like the weapon handling gets a little bit worse and all that. But on top of that, it gives them the higher chance of fleeing as well, the more and more enemies die. And they will be more likely to back up instead of actually attacking you whenever their morale is lower. And their morale gets lower when in proximity to them, their close allies die. So whenever the close allies die, their battle morale gets lower. So a good charge with this perk does wonders. But if you are on foot, Steed Killer is the way to go, because 70% damage to mounts with polearms pretty much makes it so whenever you attack a mount with a polearm, you're usually gonna dismount the enemy cavalry. 70% damage bonus is insane, really. And then also, as a captain perk, plus 30% damage to mounts with polearms by infantry in your formation. So if you have a formation of a bunch of infantry with polearms, you need to get this, because this is a must-get for that type of build. But I choose Lancer because I'm obviously on horseback most of the time. Next we have is Guards versus Skewer. So Guards, plus 50% damage while you hit an enemy in the head with a polearm. And also Governor perk, I'm not going to go over in this video. I'm going to make separate videos for Governor perks. Now why, you might ask? Governor perks are not for your main character. You cannot become a governor of a town as your main character. You can assign a governor as, you can assign a governor as your family members or as your companions. but you cannot become a governor yourself. I'm going to make videos later on the best governor perks, so don't worry about that. But guards give you plus 50% damage when you hit an enemy in the head with a polearm, versus Skewer, which is plus 30% chance of your lance staying couched after a kill. Now, again, I like swing weapons, not what's it called? Not the polearms that give you the I don't want to get it wrong. The couch lancing ability, right? This one right over here. As you can see, this one can couch lance. Now, what does couch lance mean? That pretty much means you put your polearm just kind of like pointing towards the enemy. It holds right there, so you don't have to actually press the attack button when you get close to an enemy. You just have to charge at the enemy and pretty much aim your character at that enemy, and your character will couch lance them in terms of like he's going to attack them once they make contact, right? Automatically. You don't have to actually press any button. And it does immense amount of damage as well. And pretty much what this is saying... Oh my goodness, I clicked the wrong thing again. And what this is saying right over here... Where are we at? There it is. So... what this means is the 30% chance is whenever you get a kill successfully from using the couch lance ability, your lance will stay in the same position. So you don't have to actually put it back up, because it takes some time to actually put your polearm in that position. Same way with spear bracing, it takes a little bit to get into that position. Again, I chose the 50% damage when you hit an enemy in the head with the polearm, because a headshot is already doing plenty of damage, plus the 50% damage. Most of the time, if you hit somebody in the head, you're going to take them out with this perk. And I don't really use the couch lancing ability that much, because I use swing weapons that don't have that ability. So again, I will choose guards. Next we have is phalanx. I know some nerd in the comments is going to let me know, bro. Listen, bro, I wasn't born in the Roman Empire. I don't know these words, brother. But phalanx versus standard bearer. All right, listen. So phalanx is plus 30 melee weapon skills to your troops in your party while in a shield wall formation. Okay, this is a party leader perk. This is just for everybody in your party. And then also as a captain perk, plus 3% damage with polearms by troops in your formation. So this isn't really something that you get, but this is mostly for your troops. Now, I did not choose this one very clearly because I really do not really use the shield wall formation, and that is something that you're going to use mainly while you are on foot. Again, something that I don't use while I'm on polearm. But standard bearer is minus 20%, as a captain perk, minus 20% battle morale loss to troops in your formation. What does this mean? This means the higher your, okay, so minus 20% battle morale loss. What this means is whenever your troops are fighting in a battle, if the ally next to them dies in proximity to them, I don't know the exact proximity, the devs never specified how far they have to actually be away, but proximity pretty much, like, you know, I would say a couple feet away, maybe like 10 to 20 feet away, if you know, if you were to measure it in real life, you know what I mean, kind of like distance, right? But what this means is whenever an allied troop dies next to you, your other allied troops will still lose battle morale, but at a 20% less rate. Okay, so and whenever your battle morale goes low, like I stated before, it just pretty much means your troops are going to fight worse. They're not going to be as aggressive, and they're also going to be more likely to retreat when their numbers dwindle. And also, as governor perk doesn't matter for right now. But in my opinion, I still chose the standard bearer over the, the shield wall formation, because I don't really use the shield wall formation, as I stated before, and the 3% damage with polearms by troops in your formation. It is good. Don't get it twisted. And if you choose this one, I understand. But the battle morale loss, it does do a lot, especially late game when you really are, for example, let's say you are the captain of, a group that's going into a siege. The 20% will help you for your troops to be more aggressive, attack, even if a lot of their allies die around them. So, again, that's my personal choice, but also not a bad choice. I'm not disagreeing there. Next, we have drills versus Hardy front line. So drills is as a party leader perk, you have +1 bonus daily experience to troops in your party. This is all troops. You all get +1 daily bonus experience. Pretty good. I'm not gonna lie to you. But Hardy front line gives you +5 hit points to troops in your party. All troops in your party get +5 hit points. And on top of that, they have a second bonus of -20% recruitment cost of infantry. I don't think this one is probably one of the easier choices to make in this whole lineup. You get one bonus of only 1 daily experience, or you get +5 hit points to all your troops. And on top of that, whenever you buy more infantry, it's -20% of the price forever. I think this is like the most obvious, easiest choice. If this was like +5 bonus daily experience, we might be talking. But +1 daily experience is good. Don't get it twisted. But compared to this, it's night and day. Hardy Frontline is the obvious choice regardless of what you're going. Next, we have a Surefooted versus Unstoppable Force. So Surefooted is -40% charge damage taken, and also as a captain ability, -30% charge damage taken by troops in your formation. All right. Versus Unstoppable Force, which is triple couch lance damage against shields, and as a captain, +30% damage bonus from speed with polearms to cavalry in your formation. All right. Now you might be wondering, why did I not choose the one that was cavalry? Okay. Let me explain this to you. All right. The -40% charge damage taken pretty much means when someone is charging at you, a cavalry, and they hit you, you will take 40% less of that damage. And then your troops will also take 30% less of that damage. This is going for all your troops, okay? And this doesn't matter if you're on foot or if you're on cavalry. I said on cavalry. On horseback. This is the reason I picked this. For example, if this said -20% and then -10%, I would have chose this. Because the 30% damage bonus from speed with polearms to your cavalry is extremely good. The triple couch lance damage against shields, it's alright. Yes, you'll break a couple of shields, but it's, as a level 225 perk, it's the first ability isn't great. It should have been probably back over here. But the -40%, that's almost 50% less damage. Late game, same as when I was talking about the hit points. This ability makes your troops a lot tankier, and it makes you a lot tankier, because you will get charged by cavalry. You know what I mean? Throughout Bannerlord, like throughout the game, this will keep happening to you. Even if you're on horseback, you know what I mean? They will chase you down and they will, hit you pretty hard. -40% chance may be the pretty much it's like for example, if someone hits you really, really well with a very, very good charge, you're pretty much dead. You know what I mean? You could get one shot in this game very easily, depending on how hard your difficulty is. But the -40% chance might give you a chance to take a very, very hard hit and still stay alive. That is why I picked this. And then the -30% charge damage to troops in your formation will make it so you have a lot less dead troops whenever the first charge happens and your troops get hit really hard. That is why I chose this. It is a very, very good buff against cavalry. You're going to face cavalry regardless of who you are, and cavalry is always going to be strong. Now, if you chose the bonus, I understand. Don't get it twisted. But I think overall, being just a little bit more tankier and being able to take 1 or 2 more hits, plus all the bonus HP that we've gotten, where they at +3, +5, you know what I mean? Plus this as well, your troops are going to be a lot more tankier. That's why I chose Surefooted. Next, we have, this is our last actual choice, Counterweight versus Sharpen the Tip. Pause. So Counterweight is +15% handling of swingable polearms. I'm guessing you know why I chose this. And +20 polearm skill to troops in your formation. Versus +5% damage with thrust attacks made with polearms. And +5% damage with thrust attacks by infantry troops in your formation. Again, if you prefer to be on... well, this one, You don't technically have to be on foot, but it makes sense to be on foot for this one. I suggest choose sharpen the tip. But since I love swingable polearms, I'm obviously going to choose this one. And also the 20% polearm skill to your troops obviously increases their weapon speed and weapon damage, okay? It does the same thing for your troops as it does for your player over here. And that is why I chose Counterweight. And the last one, obviously, it just multiplies your attack speed and damage every level above 250, okay? So yeah, those are my choices. Again, obviously, I play as a Cavalry polearm user if I am going to use a polearm, and I also love swingable polearms. So that is the perspective. If that's your perspective, if that's how you want to play, these, in my opinion, are the best choices. But again, as I've gone over all the other perks, it really depends on what you want to do and how you want to play the game, okay? Very diverse when it comes to the choices. More diverse, in my opinion, than one-handed and two-handed with all of your choices here. But that'll do it for me. Next video will be up in a couple of days whenever you watch this. Or, you know, if you watch it when the first day it comes out. And that one will be bow. And like always, playlist down below for all of them. And if you watch this like a year later, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have all of them done by then. So go check out that playlist. And yeah, I appreciate all the support like always. And I'll see you in the next one.